Good afternoon and welcome. It's the Great Outdoors with Doug. We got the great Doug, the man, the myth, the legend. How are you, buddy?
I'm going myth today with the wind out there. I'm
Okay.
thinking I'll be I don't know what it was last weekend. I know I wasn't the
I
man,
think you went
but
with the myth again.
Did I? Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm going to stick with the myth. I'll stay with the myth.
Stick with what's working, right?
It's working, right.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Why change? If you're winning, might not be pretty, but a win is a win is a win. So if the myth is winning, ride it. Ride it.
It's beautiful. You should get that stitched on a pillow.
So it is. So it's working good then. If we've got the man and the myth, we're just missing a legend, and maybe
That's the audience.
That's the
watching
audience, and that's a good. Hey, I like the way you're doing that. Yep.
Speaking of winning,
Yeah.
Pheasant hunting sounds like it off to a pretty good start.
You know, it was, all things considered. It was windy, and then it wasn't windy, and then it was windy again. I think probably a couple of the good points is we didn't see, and not that we can control that, but there was a lot of concern. Are we going to see a lot of people out in the field? Are we going to have even more fires than what we had a couple weeks ago? And fortunately, yes, there were a couple fires, but it wasn't as significant as the week before. So that was a good thing. There may have been some minor accidents that took place, but we didn't hear about any big, hunting accidents. And
Okay.
That's one of the myths, is when people think about hunting and they think about guns and they think about the danger, and there's a lot of spouses and moms that get concerned about that. But when you look at it statistically, hunting is by far one of the safest activities out there. When you think of literally, across the nation, hundreds of thousands, millions of people that go out hunting. In North Dakota, 100,000 different hunters out there, and we'll have maybe a dozen reported accidents in any given year. And I'm not trying to minimize it, because any one, one accident is bad, just like a football game.
Yeah.
Any one injury is bad, but I guarantee you on a Friday night, there's more injuries, and a Saturday, in football games than there are in hunting. And so it's kind of a myth about hunting safety. So we had a good start in terms of weather, in terms of accidents, and then when you talk about the actual hunt itself, the bird numbers are there, especially southwestern North Dakota. You go out to Dickinson, you go south of Dickinson, and I got guys telling me, I saw 1,000 birds by 9 o'clock in the morning. They're thick. Not as great in southeastern North Dakota, but I was kind of in southwestern Cass County on Saturday morning. The hunters are out there. There's some birds around. The good news is, I think as the corn continues to come down, you might have even better hunting. So maybe we would call that week 0. Maybe that was 0 week. We just started off.
Okay.
And now maybe we'll have a little more success for the hunters. Part of it is just getting out there. But we've got huntable numbers of birds in Richland, Ransom, Sargent, Dickey, Lemoore counties. So we were off to a pretty good start, and hopefully things just continue to get better. And as the corn comes off, a lot of people finding the pheasants kind of on the edges of the grain fields, which is typical for this time of year, Adam.
Okay, and so let's get into that. Do you have any tips on different strategies to have a successful pheasant hunt?
Well, the first thing I'll tell you to do is that you've got to adjust your expectations. If you think you're going to go out and find a bag, three bird limit. If you're going to take 5 guys, everybody's going to get a limit of birds, and you think you're going to go by Castleton, ain't going to happen. There's some shooting preserves that you might be able to go out there and shoot them, and and pay for those by the bird. But so some things in life are your expectations. Now, if you take a few guys and you say, hey, we're going to head out and we're going to go for a walk, and maybe we'll find a bird or two, and if we get lucky, we'll hit it. And our dog is good, the dog will find it. So you can find birds in southeastern North Dakota. But if your expectations are, I want to be able to shoot a limit of pheasants by 10 o'clock in the morning with 5 different guys, then you better be willing to put on 4 hours. I'll tell you that. Drive out to Dickinson and head down there and be willing to put some work into it. Not saying you can't find a good limit of birds within an hour or two of Fargo, a couple hours from Grand Forks. You can do that, but it's going to take a lot more hard work, and it might take you to hunting until 5:30, 6 o'clock at night versus being done. So there are some guys that just love, guys and gals, that they want to get out there and walk, and they want to walk 7 miles in a day, and they want to work for it. So from our perspective, from Game and Fish, what are your expectations? Then that needs to dictate where you're going to go and what you're going to do.
Okay.
You got a good dog. You got a couple of good dogs, and you're willing to hunt hard for those birds. But Again, a lot of it comes down to finding the edges of cornfields, the edges of CRP, not as much in the thick grass right now. When we start getting colder temperatures, maybe you'll see the birds, finding a little bit heavier cover. But so as it is right now, it's really kind of a fun time for the hunters because it's not quite as intense right now. Once the weather starts getting colder, then it feels a little bit more of a grit and a grind out there for the hunters.
This seems like a smooth transition. We're talking about the weather starting to get cooler, and I've been busting out the jacket even. It was crazy last week in the high 80s. I couldn't believe it, but more of that mid-October weather. And sounds like you got some kind of fun facts about bird migration. And so even if it is maybe a little warmer than we're typically expecting this time of year, they're still migrating.
It is. It's kind of funny because a lot of times we think of to get ducks and geese, to get big migrations of birds, you need to have snow, you need to have colder temperatures. And that is a little part of it. Probably the biggest drive for bird migrations is actually what's referred to as the photo period. So, you see these big flocks of geese, starting to build up into Canada, and they're going to start, and they've already started moving down into North Dakota, to northern North Dakota, and people are like, well, why in the world? What are they moving out of Canada for? Because as the days shorten, their internal clock says it's time to start heading south. So even if we don't have the snow, even if you don't have the cold, you do have, flocks of snow geese. And this is some, showing some the colder weather stuff with some ice on there. But it's an indication that you can have migrations of birds in stronger numbers, even without the snow, even without the cold. These are coming. They're not here yet, but this is what it's going to look like.
That is crazy.
It really is. This stuff is just fantastic. I mean, you're talking about surround sound. You get out there in the middle of this, and you can just feel it. You can feel the beat. It's not Blue Stem. This is their own little outdoor concert venue that you've got going on, and it's happening, and it continues to happen. What does really kind of boost it, maybe turns it up to 11, is when you do get that snow and you do get the cold, then they got to start feeding. So then they get out into the cornfields and they got to get the feed in them, so they concentrate a little bit more, they become a lot more intentional, and it just kind of readjusts the migration. But you have ducks and geese migrating right now. We've had sandhill crane migrating through North Dakota for the last 3 weeks, and it's been 80 degrees, and people are like, what in the world are these birds? Why are they? Here's the thing, is they're saying, why are they flying south? It's not cold, it's not snowy, they've got food. The reason that they start to fly south is because of the shortening of the days, which triggers them internally to start moving. We had giant Canada geese. These are the snow geese, but we had giant Canada geese that start migrating a couple, 3 weeks ago, early part of September. When we had some cold stretches in late September, we had a lot of the mourning doves. The doves just take off. You get a cold night, and they fly, and they're gone. So even if you're not a hunter, it's always kind of fun to understand a little bit more about the wildlife behavior and some of the triggers that the wildlife go through. And you can't, it doesn't make sense to us because we have a lot of snowbirds that wait until after Thanksgiving when it gets snow and cold, and then they're like, let's go. And these birds are just like, nope, the days are starting to get shorter. Well, you got sunsets that happen at around 7 o'clock, and the birds start to gather up and they start to migrate. So it's kind of, if you're into, we got a lot of people that are into watchable wildlife, and that'll be coming. These birds are, the greatest concentrations are still kind of up in the Devil's Lake region, Highway 2 and further north of there, but they are starting to trickle down into central North Dakota. And we got, sandhill cranes showing up in Nebraska in good, strong, in big numbers. So it's kind of a fun time of year.
Now, I feel like every year and every season has something unique about it. But really kind of getting into the seasons, just from a observation standpoint, or even from a professional standpoint from you, do you think that there are certain parts of the year where you're like, wow, this is my favorite time of year for the great outdoors?
I think for some people, even though their hunters love, this is This is kind of the Christmas for hunters in October.
Okay.
You get into October and into November when you get into you got the archery deer season, the pheasant season, the ducks and geese are moving. The deer gun season opens up in a couple of Fridays. So there's still you run out of opportunities to talk about what you can do outdoors, but I've been getting some great fishing reports the last couple of weeks.
Love to hear that.
Yeah. Fall walleye fishing is absolutely fantastic. So that's a consumptive part of it. If you want to put walleyes in the pan and pheasants in the freezer, it's a great time of year. But the spring is fun too because you're breaking that winter stranglehold, and there's something fun about seeing the first robins coming back in the springtime.
Yeah.
The creeks opening up. So from just a purely enjoying the outdoors, the spring kind of has its own flavor, and then the fall is kind of like a sink your teeth into it. Let's shoot something, catch something, and let's eat it and put it in the frying pan.
Feels like a grand finale of the because it does get cold. You can still do stuff in the winter, but it does get really cold out here. You got to just kind of do so much to if you're going to go ice fishing, whatever you're going to do to just handle the climate itself. But this time of year, gosh,
preach, man. Preach, because I'm listening. I'm listening because I'm the guy that I like to just walk down to the river and go fishing.
Okay.
I mean, I grew up and I've done my share of ice fishing and spear fishing, but it's like it takes you 2 hours to get yourself ready to go ice fishing, and in the middle of July, and I want to run to the Cheyenne River and go fishing. I'm like, let's grab a rod and let's go fishing.
Yeah.
You got your flops on, your shorts on. You walk down to the river, and the wintertime, let's go fishing. Okay, 2 hours later, I think we're ready to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for some people, they like that challenge of beating Mother Nature just to get there to the ice.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, it weeds out the weenies like me. That 35 below and drifts of snow to get out there and catch a fish. It's not for the yellow guy. It's for the hardcore.
It's for the guy who wants the ice sculptures in his beard. The built-in face warmer is key for the hunter who chooses to brave those elements. But me and you are a couple clean-shaven guys.
I'm over here tapping out, man. I've done it.
Yeah.
And I'm just a week-old man now.
I have been looking into. I've never gone ice fishing. I do want to go. Ironically, I was supposed to go with Devin. Last year, and it was just too warm.
Yeah.
And so he tried to organize something, get a few guys together, and we're all going to go. And then week of, he's like, "Well, guys, it's sunny."
Yeah.
It's like 40 degrees, abnormally warm winter. But I am looking forward to getting out and doing some of that stuff. But yeah, I think you're more likely to see me in my recliner, cozying up for.
You're just a young buck, though. I don't know. I got lots of excuses I've built up through age and experience. I've been building up excuses for decades now. I mean, it's a short stack. You got a very short stack of excuses, and don't try to push it off too hard because I don't think anybody's going to buy it.
Well, it sounds like a really good time for me to change the subject before I'm
before you're out there, huh?
exposed on my lack of excuses for getting out there in the sub-zero temperatures. Let's take a look at these pronghorns.
Yeah.
So the numbers, they were down, rebound numbers, back up.
It's just, these are pronghorn. We call them pronghorn. They're referred to as antelope. And we get stray one around here. We've had them from Findlay to Crookston. We've had them down in Sargent County, mostly in southwestern North Dakota, a few kind of in that Bismarck range up through Washburn along the Missouri River. But we're fortunate enough to have a huntable population of pronghorn in North Dakota. Now, this is one of those populations where we're never going to have a supply that's going to meet the demand. I mean, we're going to have 10,000 hunters putting in for under 2,000 tags, maybe 15,000 hunters. I haven't checked the number of applicants this year, but for some people, just being able to put in for an antelope tag in North Dakota is kind of cool. You don't have to go to Wyoming to go antelope hunting or to possibly draw a tag. And you referenced it out of the gate. So in 2023, our antelope population, that horrible winter of 2023, we lost about 40% of them. And what's interesting about antelope is you can lose antelope specifically to just like wintertime mortality. They can die in the winter. But I remember years ago, a study done in North Dakota, and we had antelope in a really nasty winter about 30 years ago, and they took off and they made it all the way to Wyoming.
No way.
They literally will migrate, terrestrial on the ground. And so when we see population down 40% in 2023, doesn't necessarily mean that's just mortality, because some of those antelope left and went to Montana. Some went down to South Dakota. But what we did see last year was a nice rebound. We're up about 30% from last year, from 2023. So when you look at the statistics, well, if you're down 40% and now you're up 30%, well, you're still down 10% from where you're at,
Right,
which
I
is
was just gonna ask.
it's like the stock market crashes, and okay, now it went up 10%. Well, if you crashed 50% and you're up 10%, you're still back 40. So our pronghorn numbers are probably more in that building range, and we're hoping this winter we can continue growing that population. But what it did with a bump of 30%, we were able to offer 850 more tags this year than last year. So we got 1,265 tags available this year. That's 850 more than last year. The gun season for pronghorn is happening right now. So this isn't something where you can just say, hey, I'm going to go out and shoot an antelope. You got to have a tag for it. It's an application process, and it goes through a lottery. But for those people that have drawn a tag, they got, end of October, I think, is when the pronghorn gun season wraps up. The archery season opened up earlier on. But just kind of cool when you look at what we have in North Dakota. We're never going to have the number of moose, elk, bighorn sheep, pronghorn, so that everybody wants to hunt can get a tag. But it's kind of neat to say, hey, we've got them. We've got a strong enough population where we can offer opportunities for residents in North Dakota to go out there and shoot an antelope.
Absolutely. Now, earlier we talked about how this is kind of that sweet spot of the year.
Yeah.
You called it the Christmas of hunting season.
It is kind of, yeah.
Love that. But speaking of Christmas, we're kind of looking at November starting to creep in. We're talking about the bird migration.
Yeah.
And we're even talking about the whispers and the winds. I don't know if you heard. We might get even some snow as soon as like Halloween or something like that. And then we're starting to get into November and December, and I feel like it's more of a guarantee we're going to see snow. We live in North Dakota.
You're talking about the NFL draft is coming up here pretty soon in April.
Oh,
is that
my
what
goodness.
Is that what you're doing?
Oh,
today?
did you just fast forward? Did you just fast forward right through winter?
You're spinning through fall.
Well, maybe, hopefully not. Well, we'll see. I think the Bears are going to be in the playoffs, and that's neither here nor there. But I'm not ready to skip this year. I'll hit the fast forward button like in that movie Click.
Yeah.
Not this year.
No.
But I do want to say, when's the party start to trickle out? When do things start to cool down and we transition into the winter activities?
And the good news is, because I can remember October's, we had a pheasant opener 5 years ago.
Okay.
2019, and we had a raging blizzard with 30 inches of snow across central North Dakota.
You hate to hear that.
Right. So the good news is the right here and right now, like you said, it's not a shock to hear of a snowflake in the forecast coming up. I don't think anybody can say that. But so I think really you hold on and you just squeeze this time of year until you get probably till the mid part of November. I mean, it's kind of like the time change. Like, once we get to November, we're going to flip the clocks and we're going to go, whew, this is real. Like, fall is just about.
Yeah.
So once we get into November, I think fall kind of starts losing its grip just a little bit, and it's getting a little bit slippery, and you start feeling like it's slipping away. So, if you love to fish in the fall and hunt in the fall, pheasants and walleye and ducks and archery, deer and all that stuff, this is really just a fantastic. You're gonna get a lot of guys and gals that take vacation right now because they're just like, I can't get it all in. And you go out there and chase some pheasants in the morning, do some walleye fishing in the afternoon, then go out on a duck hunt late in the day, a goose hunt. It's just kind of like the great buffet. Like, where do I go? Where do I start?
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you go get the dessert right away because you don't want to screw around and miss it. So, you got to do whatever. The beautiful thing about hunting in the outdoors is, within the framework of the law, you can choose. Do I want to go fishing today? Do I want to go hunting today? Mm-hmm. Do I want to wait until the afternoon? Do I want to just sit at home because it's a little too cold out there?
Yeah. Yeah.
You can choose. That's an advantage that hunting and fishing has versus sports, because sports, they tell you what time the game's going to start. And if you don't feel like it, they're going to start without you. In hunting, you can say, yeah, maybe tomorrow, and the birds will be there. They'll be there.
I like that. I like that. Doug, anything else you want to get into before we let you go?
Deer season is coming fast.
Okay.
Go look for your deer tag. If you can't find your deer tag today, pretty good chance you won't find it when the season starts. So then you need to go on the Game and Fish Department website and fill out a replacement form. But the big thing today, I'd tell you, is if you get a chance today or in these next coming days, go look for your deer tag. And if you can't find it, start making plans to try to get a replacement for that.
Okay, sounds like some great advice. That's Doug Leier, the man, the myth, the legend. Today, the myth. Always a pleasure, my friend, and plenty to get into. Sounds like we got a few really good weeks of talking about the great outdoors. For now, thank you so much for tuning in on Valley News Now, and we'll see you next time.